So in the last video, we talked about execution context and we stepped through a block of code and I showed you what happened during the memory creation phase and the execution phase. Well, here I'm going to do the same thing. You can see I have the same exact code in my VS Code, and we're going to do the same thing from within the browser. And we can do that by using the Sources tab in the DevTools. And over here, you'll see our files. And if I click on script.js, we're going to see this same code right here. Now, using the debugger, I can put what we call a breakpoint anywhere I want, and that's going to stop the code from running at that point. So what I'm going to do is put it right at the beginning, so it's actually not going to execute the script. So I'm going to reload the page, and none of this is executed, but the memory creation phase has been run. So down here, you can see all these variables, x, y, sum1, sum2, they've all been put into memory and set to undefined. Because remember, with the memory creation phase, it puts your variables in memory and sets them to undefined, okay, before the execution. Now, remember, functions get stored in memory, and the entire code in the function gets stored. However, that's going to be down here in global. So that's called getSum. So if we look down here, we should see a getSum function right here. All right, so that code is stored in memory as well. Now, one interesting thing is if you used var instead of const or let, then those variables would be put on the global scope as well. And that we can get into hoisting and stuff later on. But what I want to show you now is if I step through this, so I can use this little arrow icon to execute the code line by line, and you're going to see what happens over here. So I'm going to click the arrow. It's going to run the first line, const x equals 100. And now we've started the execution phase. Okay, normally it just goes through and does it, all together, but or it does it real fast. It doesn't pause like this. But now we're pausing line by line, and you can see that 100 has been put into X. Okay, because we started at the execution. Now I'm going to click this arrow again and execute the second line, and you'll see that 50 has been put into Y. Now it skips the function definition because there's nothing to execute and goes right to this getSum where it's being invoked. Now remember, when we invoke a function, it creates a new function execution context. So I'm going to click the arrow, and now you'll see this new area called local, which is our function execution context. And the first line has ran, so N1 and N2 contain 150. Because our first function call, we passed in x and y, which are 150. Now, if I click this again and run this line right here, it's going to put 150 into sum. So I'll click it again, and now you'll see sum has 150 in it. Now, if we step out of the function, it's going to go to the next getSum, which is being passed in 10 and 5. So it's going to open up a new execution context with 10 and 5 as the arguments here, as the variables. If I click it again, it's going to add the sum. Click it again, it's going to go to the next line, to the console log. And now our script has been run. All right, so that's what it looks like when you go through line by line. But you saw even before we executed anything, the creation phase ran and put our variables and our function into memory. But if this is confusing to you, don't worry about it. My point of doing this is just to show you what's going on under the hood and how this is actually run within the browser. So in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about something called the call stack. And then after that, we'll get back to syntax, creating conditionals and loops and so on.